Good morning. It is a beautiful snowy day on this January 25th, and my girls and I are home from school for a snow day. We didn't quite anticipate it. We thought maybe 2 hour delay, but we are home. And it is so beautiful out here. It amazes me how quiet it feels outside when there's snow. And the birds have a lot to say this morning. Something I've noticed there's German Shepherd, when I edit my videos, like how much bird noise there is that I don't even necessarily hear that the camera picks up. Nala's out here helping me today. Yes. She just tested the electric fence around the outside of the chicken coop for me. It is in fact working. I don't know another way for dogs, animals, whatever, to learn to not touch an electric fence without just letting them touch it. It keeps the chicken safe from predators. Also stings like heck if you touch it. There was actually once we forgot to unplug it and we were working on our high tunnel, and we joked that I tested the fence with my forehead because I was tying the high tunnel down with a rope, and the fence, the fence is right about forehead height. It was working, I guarantee it. But I thought maybe we'd do some garden talk out here in the snow on January 25th. Well, Nala eats snow out of my hand. Do you need some more? Is that good? Come here. Why don't you come over here? Over here, Nala. Come here. There you go. Yeah. Is that good? Oh, that's good. She's just a puppy. I mean, she turned a year old right before Christmas, so she looks like a full-grown dog. She is a full-grown size dog. In her head, she is still a puppy. So, welcome to my backyard. My name is Alicia. I live in Western Pennsylvania. I have 2 girls. My husband and I both work full-time. I'm a school teacher. He works for a small company in the area. And we love to grow our own food. We live on 1 acre. And right now I've got 5 gallons of sap boiling inside. Well, not inside, in our greenhouse. That will give us probably about a pint of syrup once it's all done. We're already at 1.5 gallons, a little over 1.5 gallons of syrup for the season, in a season that we normally don't start tapping the trees until like mid-February. So it could possibly be a really good year. I think this is, every time I keep forgetting, we're 6A, I believe 6A or 6B. Typically our last frost is around mid-May, can be later. Our first frost is usually mid-October to the end of October. Like, we can a lot of times make it into October with frost tender things. Not this past year, but the year before, we made it to November, which was insane. I don't think I've ever seen a season that you could grow frost tender things into November, but we did. This year was early. Frost was early this year. But I just figured we'd talk direct seeding, starting seeds early, that kind of thing. I'm sitting, I don't know if I can even make justice of this. Let me turn the camera around. I'm sitting under our magnolia tree. I want to see if this can, look at these branches. Isn't that beautiful? So pretty. All right. So, not that this is the only way to do things, but in this area, here's what I do. Right now, I have onions growing inside under a grow light. I planted those seeds a few weeks ago. I'm probably going to start some more. This is something I've started more recently. I've done onion seeds before, but now I'm growing a lot more. Just onions is one of those things that stores well, and there's so many recipes that we use onions for. So right now we might get till about the middle of February on our stored onions before we have to purchase any. And we pretty much don't buy any through the summer, fall, and winter. So we make it a decent part of the year with not having to buy any onions. We're able to supply most of ours. I'd love to get to the point where we can make it a whole year on our own onions. So that's kind of a goal of mine. So we can start in this area depending on the year, but around St. Patrick's Day is kind of the guideline for being able to put out like greens and brassicas and those kind of things. So I will be direct seeding like lettuce and kale and peas, Swiss chard, like those kind of frost hardy things, anywhere from the beginning to the middle or end of March, depending on the season, depending on other obligations. Now I will be starting like 6 to 8 weeks before you're going to set them out. You can start your brassicas inside. You can start in pots, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, those kind of things. You can start lettuce inside too. I just haven't found a way that I like with that. So I usually just direct seed it. So 6 to 8 weeks before you're going to set them out. So probably like the middle of February on till the end of February, I'll probably start some of my brassicas in pots inside under our grow lights. Now our system, like the way we start our plants, we just have like one of those plastic snapped together utility shelves like you'd get at a box store, and you'd have like, you know, your stuff on in the garage. We hang grow lights on those, and that's in our living room, and that's where we grow a lot of plants. I stock a decent sized garden and give away a lot of plants just on that growing shelf. So I'll be starting those, and then I'll probably start peppers and broccoli around that same time. For me, peppers always take a while to get going, to germinate, and then also to get, like, they're just slower. Basil. So around the middle to the end of February, I'll start, digging, man. I'll start some peppers and some basil because they just take a little while to get going. And I start a lot of peppers. Peppers is becoming my new obsession. I was doing a ton of tomatoes, which I still do, especially in realms of other people, but peppers are something I very much enjoy, planting lots of variety. And then about the middle of March is when I'll start my tomatoes. I've started them earlier. I love tomatoes. I get so excited for the growing season, especially the spring of 2020 when everybody was home. I started my plants really early because that was just kind of my joy, my stress relief at that point in time. And so I started them crazy early. I started a lot of them because I was home. And then we had snow on like Mother's Day, which is kind of your day to set tomatoes out. And so I didn't get to set tomatoes out until like end of March or end of May, and they were so, they were like 2.5, 3. I had no space for them. I'd potted them up. They took over our entire living room. So unless you have a lot of space, don't get overexcited and start your tomatoes too early, because they take over your house and they get too big. So we'll start those the middle of March, and that's plenty of time to get them going. There was one year my husband had got me a cold frame, and we put tomatoes under that cold frame to get them going earlier, and they grew like crazy. Like they just shot up. We had some like inside the cold frame, and we had some outside the cold frame. Ma'am, make sure you stay with me. You stay with me. Yeah, I see you. Stay here. They got huge. But the interesting thing is, the tomatoes inside that cold frame. I pulled the cold frame once we were well past frost. I was just trying to get, I thought maybe, easy ma'am, I thought maybe getting the tomatoes under that cold frame would get us tomatoes earlier. They didn't. The tomatoes just started up higher. So like the tomato plants were taller, they were leggier, they were huge, but they started setting fruit at the same time as the ones that were outside the cold frame. They were just up higher because they just kind of shot up, and the blossoms started at the same time, just higher up on the plant. So I didn't find that to be very advantageous for that, so I'm probably not going to do that anymore. Just I'm exercising patience. The tomatoes will come when they will come. So let's see. So those are the things I start inside. I'll start some marigolds because I like to have marigolds for companion planting. I'm going to start some chamomile. One of my goals is to get better. I'd like to grow some more things to make tea and dehydrate. Dehydrating is something I'm not good at. That's something I'm going to work on. I always feel like when I just hang stuff, I'm always leery of the number of flies that land on it, just because we're in and out a ton. We end up with flies inside. I don't know, maybe there's people out there that don't, but we end up with flies. So I'm always leery of hanging it. I'm not real confident. I have a good dehydrator, but I just haven't learned enough yet, so we're working on that. And that's mainly what I'll start inside. And if I kind of time it right, the amount of space I have on that utility shelf is plenty for me, and like I said, to also give plants away. So that works really well. And then the things I'll be direct seeding outside, like I said, I'll plant somewhere between the beginning of March and end of March into April. I'll be planting, as time and weather allows, I'll be planting lettuce and kale and Swiss chard and mustard greens, peas, carrots. Carrots can handle some cold. They're a little tricky to get germinated, but I'll be planting some carrots, turnips, radishes, a lot of radishes this year. I'm hoping arugula. I love arugula. It's got a little bit of a bite to it, which if you like that kind of thing is really nice. Ma'am, you're going to stay here. You're going to stay right here with me. Neighbor has her dog out. She's right behind the camera. She's very intent. Ma'am, you're going to stay right here. I don't know how much detail I'm going to go into because the snow is getting fairly intense and the wind's picking up here. We may have to talk more later. So we'll start those things out that I just mentioned when it's still cool. And then as we kind of start getting further in, mid-end of April, onions will be going out. Kind of when I see a good window. Onions can handle cold. I'll have to actually look back and see. I would say like first couple weeks of April is when I'll start putting onions out. I'm gonna see. I have an onion planting video, or I have my video up that I put my onions out last year. I'll have to see when that was. And then I'll start putting towards the end of April, and again, this is kind of depending on the weather. I may start putting some beans in the ground and some cucumbers and zucchini. I feel like for those I can gamble a little bit, because if I lose some, I usually have enough seeds so that like just losing a couple seeds, losing a couple plants to frost, like if we have a frost and they get nipped, isn't a great loss. But if I can get them going early and possibly have a little bit of an earlier harvest with those kind of things, then it's worth a little bit of a gamble. Probably early May is a better time to be putting those in the ground. You're staying here, ma'am. And then potatoes can go in the ground, from what I understand, when you start seeing your dandelions blossom. That's an indication that the soil temp is to the point where it's time to plant potatoes. And then the other thing I've also heard is when you start seeing your volunteer plants germinate, like I have tomatoes that germinate all through my garden. When you start seeing those germinate, that's kind of your indication that the soil temperature is to a point to germinate like some of your other seeds. So you can start direct seeding, you know, some of your cucumbers and peppers and different things that you're going to be putting into the ground. Oh, and I already have sweet potatoes growing in one window to make for sweet potato slips. I'll be starting some more of those in March, because I've never done this. I've never started them this early and just had them growing in the window through the winter. So I don't know how that's going to work. I'll put some of those slips in the ground, but I'm also going to start some sweet potatoes probably about mid-March, about the same time I'm starting, early March, probably a little before my tomatoes. But peppers or sweet potatoes cannot handle any cold whatsoever. They're a southern crop, so those will be going in the ground not until June. They can't handle temperatures in the 40s, so they're going to go in. They're going to go in the ground sometime in June. There's probably more things to talk about, but the cold is starting to seep through a little bit. Sitting here in the snow on this beautiful day, and the wind is picking up a little bit, so it might be time to go inside. Thank you for joining me on this snowy January day outside, contemplating gardening and growing green when it's completely white outside. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope to see you in the next video.